While we close our eyes when we say the Shema, we'll discuss one of the fundamental aspects of our religion, our faith, is to say Shema Israel. When a person is, actually there's an expression, when a person feels afraid or worried about something, or wants to see a salvation, say Shema Israel. Where the people went to the Holocaust, marching to the chambers, if they needed to have some inspiration, some strength, they would say Shema Israel. There was another way, perhaps, in which they did Kiddush Hashem unwillingly. They were saying, we are dying as Jews. You're not killing us. We're dying. So they say Shema Israel. And of course, on Yom Kippur, when we end the whole tefillah, we make the famous, most important statements of the day of our religion. The first one is Shema Israel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And this essentially is the sum of our faith. There is a God in the world. There are 2 points of this story, of this statement. One of them is there is a God. And the second one is that there is our God, that we have a relationship with Him. That's what we say, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And the question is, when we make such a statement that God is one, we're making a statement of enormous faith, confidence in Hashem. I think in order to understand the depth of this statement, I'd like to suggest to you the antithesis of the Shema Israel, or be the opposite of Shema Israel. And I think in the Jewish history we have an example, and that is the sin of the Egel, the Chel of the Egel, the sin of the golden calf. Let's understand, what is it that the people decided? Why did they want to build a golden calf? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was late? I think that the basic feeling of the people there when they were waiting for Moshe Rabbeinu is, he has to come now. And if he doesn't come now, then we're giving up. We want to understand everything that goes on. The Beit HaLevi says that the essence of the Chet HaEgel, the essence of the golden calf, the sin, was a kind of arrogance. That we know everything, we understand everything, we do not have to wait, we do not have patience. We cannot be humble to say, maybe we made a mistake. Maybe there's something here that escapes us. No. Now we have to do something else. So, when we have mitzvot as Jews, every mitzvah has some elements that are beyond our understanding. Even the mitzvot that are simple, like we put on tefillin. We think that we put on tefillin, but we are making a statements. Shema Israel, we do the mitzvot, we put them in the box. But what really is the meaning of the mitzvah? What are we accomplishing with the mitzvah? This is a secret that is beyond us. Our observance has to imply that there are some things we don't understand. The Kabbalah explains that Hashem created a world in which man holds the buttons of the universe. There are things in the world that are deficient. There are things which are not fitting well, errors that create all the problems in the world, whether it's moral, ecological, or climactic. Anything that happens in the world is the result of this basic lack of harmony, something that is not perfect. So Hashem created a world in a way that is imperfect in order to give us the opportunity to make it better, to perfect it. It's almost as if Hashem created a lab, and we are here to improve, to benefit, to harmonize the world. You know, this is a little bit, but sometimes it's called tikkun olam, but it's a little more than that. It's a greater tikkun, not just to participate in marches or save the whales. Tikkun olam is deeper. It's something beyond our understanding. It means that every mitzvah we do contains some elements which are beyond our comprehension, but when we execute them, something is moved in the universe. Let me give you an example. Perhaps that we can understand a little bit better. When a person, for example, comes to a shul, and when there is time to daven, he davens with kavanah, with intention, with concentration. When a person sits and really, you can see that he is praying, talking to Hashem, maybe sometimes crying or whatever, what happens? The whole world, the whole community looks at this person and maybe they will emulate, they're inspired. And it sometimes happens. Unfortunately, we have, in most cases, we have the opposite. Unfortunately, we have people who are distracted and unfocused. But when you see somebody who really creates something, this kind of a intense prayer, you're amazed. And it affects people. It affects maybe the person next to him, the person behind him, and little by little, a whole shul can be transformed by this person davening with kavanah. So this is an example in a small microcosm of what we can do when we do a mitzvah. A mitzvah not only connects with the community, it may connect even with beyond the community in ways which are beyond our comprehension, like a button that moves something in the universe. So through observance, we actually can make a change. The only difference is that in order to make those changes, we have to do the changes according to the way Hashem told us. In other words, Hashem provided the buttons. The buttons have a certain design. They have a certain measure. They have a certain form. If you use this button, then you can access the universe changes that are created through the button. But you cannot make your own button. So let me give you an example. When the Torah wants to say, we want to bring the divine presence to the world by creating a tabernacle, a mishkan. That's essentially Hashem, after the Chet HaEgel, after the sin of the golden calf, that's what the people needed. They needed to see Hashem. According to the rabbis, before the whole reason of Chet HaEgel, they needed, when Moshe Rabbeinu left, they felt something was missing in the world, so they wanted to create something to sort of attract the presence of Hashem into the world. Where did they get this idea from? From a mitzvah. Hashem gave certain mitzvot, and when they understood that by doing certain acts, I can have the divine presence, I can access this divine channel. So they said, okay, so maybe we need something like this. And also they built the golden calf, which was typical in Egypt. And they said, maybe this, by creating this, we will get the divine presence. Hashem says, no. If you want to create something that creates the divine presence, it has to be exactly as I will tell you. Notice how the Mishkan, the tabernacle, Hashem says, build it this way, 2 amot, 2.5 amot, 1.5 length. Why these measurements? Some of the measurements are really strange. Why halves altogether? You know, some of the ark, 2.5 amot. Why not 2 or 3? It is all a sign. Hashem is telling us, if you want to have the divine presence, it can only be done through my mitzvot, through the way that I arranged it. And that's what the temple itself represented, a mystery. A structure in which the divine presence will be visible. It can only be made if you use the commandments of Hashem. And that's why in Mashat Tekut, it says every time when they build the tabernacle, it says several times, Ka'asher Siva Hashem and Moshe. They did this as Hashem commanded Moshe. And then they did that, Hashem commanded Moshe. And over the same refrain. Not once. In every detail. Ka'asher Siva Hashem and Moshe. It's interesting that when Moshe Rabbeinu is pleading with Hashem, actually something we're going to be reading now in the Torah. Pleading with Hashem, he says to Hashem, forgive the Jewish people. Re'eh, ki im amcha agoy hazeh. Your people, this people is your people. So what he's saying, according to the Beit HaLevi, is you see these people, they want to be close to you. They correctly, they didn't throw a golden calf, but they want to come to you. They're not an idol. They wanted the divine presence. They made a mistake. And that's the essence of the message that we have to understand. If we want the divine presence, we need to do it not through whichever way we want, whatever way we think it is right. But it is only through what Hashem commands. You know, it's interesting, this is an aside, that sometimes when there is and I heard in some cases when there's a bar mitzvah in the Reform or conservative synagogues, sometimes even, unfortunately, also synagogues, the child is given some sort of a project, you know, to make them. So I heard that in one case, I don't remember, they were collecting phones or collecting glasses or whatever, you know, part of the bar mitzvah process. So I thought to myself, oh, it's a beautiful idea. Why not? You ought to help poor people, to give them phones, cell phones, or to give them glasses. It's a beautiful concept. But what is it behind this concept of making a bar mitzvah connected with bringing people home? It's the idea that I want my child to be moral. I want my child to be moral means that I'm going to teach them to do some sort of charity the way that I think it's the right thing to do. The answer is, a child is becoming a bar mitzvah. The whole idea is to say, you now are going to live, of course, a moral life. That includes a lot more than phones and glasses. A lot more than going around distributing people this today. It means that moral life that encompasses a lot of things. Something that reflects a universe of action. Not just one little thing. And the concept is, when these people do these mitzvot, they're saying, I want to relate to God in my way, the way that I think. That is the problem of the golden calf. We have to say there are things we don't understand. So we have to understand we have to try to comprehend the mitzvot and the world of mitzvot as a world that is beyond my understanding. I am engaged in it. I'm entering it without totally understanding. So now this is now what I want to explain. The Shema Israel that represents the basic affirmation of our faith is a time that we actually are saying there is a God in the world, but that God I don't know, I cannot understand him completely. I am going to allow for some form of humility. What we are saying is, I am not able to see everything. I do not comprehend everything. The Shema represents a person who says, I know there is a great mystery there that I'm willing to accept even when I don't understand it completely. That's what the Torah forbids us, to add mitzvot or to subtract mitzvot. It's not something, I am going to accept the mitzvot, they're all beautiful, except one. Such a person is not fulfilling the Torah. Is fulfilling what he thinks is right. So even though a person is doing, let's say, 612 mitzvot, he's not doing the mitzvot. He's doing 612 actions. To do a mitzvah, you have to say, it's because Hashem gave it to me. So who am I to say, Hashem gave me 612, but one of them is not good? What kind of arrogance would that mean about the other 612? So whoever accepts the Torah thinking that he knows everything, that he has to understand everything, is not accepting the Torah. So I want to give an example of how, in history, when after the Ched HaMeraglim, after the sin of the spies, Hashem tells the generation, you're not going to enter the land. You're going to die in the desert. 40 years later, the next generation will come in. That's what they're told. What is the reaction of people? Remember, what is the first thing they do after they cry and after Hashem tells them, okay, you're not entering the land of Israel? You know what the first reaction is? Is we want to come in. We want to fight. No, forget about what we said. Forget about our fear. We want to fight. What? You just said that you couldn't fight. You just said that even Hashem couldn't conquer these giants. You were crying all night in the tent saying, oh, look what Hashem is doing to us, took us out of Egypt and to kill us in the desert. This is a terrible thing. And now you want to fight. But look at human logic. What they were told to do, they did not want to do. And they were told not to do, they want to do. The people were defeated. But at the beginning, the human psyche is that sometimes the power, the desire to do what we want to do is greater than the power of receiving what Hashem wants us to do. It is human nature. And that is a choice that people make. That's one of the reasons why people who accept Hashem get a reward. It's not normal, not natural. It's not automatic. You have to choice. Hashem made us with such personality traits that the desire to do what we want is always greater than the desire to do what anybody else wants, even if it's Hashem. And so that's the choice between a person who is religious and a person who is not religious. The person who wants to accept the mitzvot says, I am willing to accept what Hashem because of my belief. Because there's something in me that tells me that there is a God in the world and I want to do what the Creator wants. That's a decision that a person makes. The other person says, I don't care. Show me. I don't see. Prove it to me. There is a God. Where is He? Prove it to me. And by the way, I want to tell you, there's no way to prove absolutely God. Even though there are many stories about how nice it is to prove God. It's impossible. I assure you, there's no way to prove God. Everything else that people say have a lot of fallacies. How do I know? How do I know that there is no way to prove there is a God in the world? What am I so? I know all the proofs of physics, all the proofs of biology. That people talk so much about God and God and God. Who am I to say there is no proof? I'll tell you why. Because Hashem made us a choice. A choice can only be made if you can make it. If you cannot make a choice, there's no choice. So if Hashem says, you can believe in me and you cannot believe in me, that means that there are ways in which you can say there's no absolute proof. In fact, this is actually in the Tadas Kelim Variat Tosafot, this actually brings this issue that Hashem gives us the opportunity, gives us the choices not to believe in Hashem. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, in a very brilliant observation, I'm not actually agreeing or saying that he's right, but nevertheless, he has a little insight. When he was confronted with the question of fossils and the age of the universe, he says that maybe one of the reasons that the fossils were put in the world so that people would believe that the world is millions of years old is so to confuse people. So those who don't want to believe in Hashem have a right to believe in Hashem. Hashem brought beings in the world the kinds of evidence against his own existence. Amazing. You understand? Hashem is so much wants to give us the choice that he not only hides, but he even may provide contrary proofs to his existence. So now, let's go back to my question. Who am I to say there is no proof there is a God in the world? You cannot find the proof. Why did Hashem do it? Because it's ultimately an existential choice each person has to make. And because when you make that choice, you get a reward. That's the reward of emunah. It's not something easy. And in fact, it's not permanent. Every day, a person can be confronted with doubts, with disappointments, with disillusionments. The question, where is Hashem? Sometimes it happens to rise in our heads. I want to tell you, by the way, that some people are very strong. It does not go away from them no matter what happens. During the Holocaust, for example, that was a good example. There were people who suffered tremendously, who showed great cruelty, and it wasn't because of this that they say we don't believe in Hashem. They continue to believe in Hashem. So there are people who made the decision. They saw cruelty. They said there's no God, and others say there is a God, and are they very religious people? Why? Because it's ultimately a choice, and it's not the world that is going to tell you there is a God or not a God. And what is belief? Because there is in the world a lot of evidence that there is a God in the world. There is. The fact that we exist. The fact there is life. There is a lot of goodness things. But it is made in such a way that you can deny it. And so I want to go back to this question. Why do we close our eyes? Because we are saying, I do not understand and will not understand everything. There is a very beautiful Tehillim that I want to analyze with you for a moment, because what I'm saying is not that we need to become irrational or zombies or accept things without thinking about it. That actually is the opposite of the intellectualism of the Jewish people. Jewish tradition is very intellectual. One of the first prayers, first bracha after the first three brachot that we say in the morning is Ata chonen l'adam da'at. Hashem, you give us wisdom. The gift of a mind is one of the greatest gifts that makes a difference between a human being and an animal. So, how do you reconcile the great gift of the intellectual ability of human beings with this idea that there are mysteries that we will not understand? And I found this beautiful, beautiful midrash that is analyzed from this pasuk in Tehillim. Listen to this pasuk. And this will resolve in some way the question that I have. It says, Shimi Bat ur'i vehati hoznech. It says, listen, my daughter, and you will see, and lend your ear to me. First of all, it's interesting. It says, first of all, hearing, then seeing, and then hearing again. If you already heard, what do you have to see? What do you have to hear again? So the Beit Halevi explains that first of all, the word shema means to accept. Just like we say the Shema Israel, we have to accept it for whatever reason, for whatever is in your neshama that says, I believe there is a God in the world. You have to accept it as a form of faith. As you know, sometimes you see in math, in mathematics or mathematical structures that you have to have a premise, an axiom, with which you begin a process. Even in scientific research, you don't start from nothing. There's always a premise with which we begin. So that premise, intellectually, spiritually, is to say Shema Israel. I believe there is a God in the world. Then comes, that's Shema. Then comes seeing. Seeing means the exercise of the intellectual abilities, the investigation, the analysis, the contemplation, the rationalization, all of the work that we do in order to make mitzvot more intelligible, our lives. You know, there's no anybody who has witnessed or learned a page in Gemara knows how deeply every aspect of law is analyzed, how we want to understand everything, every detail of the law from every angle. And so that's ur'i. You will see. So you will first hear, accept it, then you'll be an intellect, you analyze it and you contemplate it. But then, if some reason eludes you, if you feel that something is not absolutely clear, you cannot give it up. Then you have to hati uznech, then you have to hear it again. You have to strengthen once again that element of faith with which you begin. Religion is not a research that you can start. Let me see if there is a God in the world. This will never lead you anywhere. As we said before, no proof there is a God. No proof. You cannot prove it. You can allegorize and metaphors, but no absolute definite proof. That's the beauty of it. Thank God Hashem allows the atheist to exist in the world. He wants the atheist. Because if there will not be real atheists, there'd be no reason to give us reward. He wants to give us reward. What a special nation this nation is, the Jewish people, that we are giving Hashem our faith. That's why Hashem loves us. So there is no proof in the world. You cannot start it that way. So how do we start? We start with, first of all, what we would say, a personal experience. Your neshama, your life. You know, sometimes as a rabbi, some people come to me and say, Rabbi, I want to come close to Hashem. What happened? What happened to them? You know, sometimes somebody died in their family. Somebody got sick. Or somebody had something, especially, usually things that are not so happy happen to them. Very few people come to me and say, Rabbi, I won the lottery. I believe in God. I want to believe in Hashem. Nobody came to me, at least. But people who have troubles, they all become more religious. That's okay. You find some reason, some form of goodness in the world. And whatever reason is, you must begin with Shema. It could be as simple as saying, I'm born a Jew. I come from a tradition of people who believe in God. That's enough for me to begin. But then you have to study, and then you have to learn, and you have to contemplate. Don't just You cannot be an ignorant Jew. A Jew has to be learned. Judaism emphasizes the importance of people studying and learning. Learn the Torah. See the details of the Torah. And if somebody bothers you, you're going to ask and you're going to discuss it. And by the way, the only reason the atheists live in the world is because they think that the rabbis and the Torah and the Talmud is foolish. They never learned it. They never saw it, but they think it's foolish. I think there is no greater fool than those who call other people fools without studying what they've said. So people, you can study. But in the end, if there are things that you doubt, things that you don't understand, you must review and return rather to the original faith. It's interesting, it says in the Torah, this mitzvah is not far from you, and the rabbis say, Ve'im rechoka imimcha. If you don't understand it, it's because of you. It's not because doesn't make sense. It's you don't understand it. Oh, that's a terrible thing to tell a human being, a person. What am I, a fool or stupid? What do you think I am? I am a physicist, I'm a mathematician, I'm a doctor, I'm a philosopher. Why are you telling me I don't understand? It is almost an insult to people, and that's the challenge. That's the challenge. Can you accept that there are some things you don't understand? That's what the rabbis say. If you don't understand it, it's because your mind is limited. Who are we to understand everything? I mean, even today, in the world of science and physics, there are so many people that so many things don't understand. They pretend that whatever they know, they understand. But they don't. Humility is one of the elements that is necessary to be a religious person. Other the intellectual analysis, one must return to that basic faith. And that what we may not be able to comprehend is because our minds in itself are limited. I want to point out something. Religion means embracing complexity. It means being humble that there are some things that we will never understand. That's also in science. To be comfortable saying the words, I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting that Socrates one of the famous sayings addressed to him is, all I know is that I know nothing. Very wise. The deep is not always obvious. What really is difficult, it's not always ready-made and ready understood. The ultimate goal of the knowledge, in a way, is to reach the level when we do not know something. To reach that border, the boundary. Any scientist will tell you that they reach a moment, a level in which they are beyond they do not understand. That is essentially the challenge of a religious person. And that's why we close our eyes when we say Shema. Because we're saying, Hashem, there is a God in the world. I'm accepted there is a God in the world. But I also am humbled to realize that there will be some things I would not see. It is interesting that the word re'i in the Midrash, re'eh, the word ro'eh, just like we say in English, when you say to somebody, I see, point, it means I understand it. Seeing is connected to the intellect. So when we put our hands in front of the eyes, we're saying, there are some things in the world that I will not understand. And I will live with that. And that, I think, going back to the Egel. The Chet HaEgel, the sin of the golden calf, was essentially a statement of arrogance and a statement of impatience. I don't understand something, I'm giving it up. I'm not giving it time. They give up Hashem. They gave up the mitzvot. They gave up Moshe Rabbeinu because they think they understood. And the point of Shema is exactly the opposite. That's what it says. Shmor tam ur'ei yashar. Beautiful idea. Shmor, when you observe the mitzvot, you have to first begin by being simple. Accept the faith without all the questions, without the critical attitude. And then ur'ei yashar, then you will see, when you study Torah, when you study the mitzvot, you will see how yashar they are, how right they are, how correct they are, how intelligent they are. What was it about the famous statement? I'm reminded of Mark Twain, that he said when his father, I think, he said, my father was, when I was 15, my father really was not a very intelligent person. But when I became 25, I realized how much he had grown in that period of time. So sometimes, it happens in our perspective. From our limited minds, we may think, oh, this is wrong. And we grow in intelligence as we study more, we become more mature and more intelligent, more wise. We realize those mitzvot make sense. It happens, right? When sometimes we tell our children, don't do that because it's going to hurt you. They don't see it at the beginning. And later on, they see. So that, in a sense, in a way, we need to see that ultimately the mitzvot all make sense. They all are perfect. Perfect. Because they come from the creation of the world. And therefore, we have to believe that there is sense. But until we do, until everything is crystal clear, if it ever, we must close our eyes. And to say there are times in which I will give in to that which we do not know. I want to end with a beautiful story that actually we were learning Gemara this week. Gemara is analyzing the reason for some legal methods of acquisition. It's a very mechanical, legal transaction. The Gemara was analyzing how could one person become obligated to pay a debt, a certain person when he wasn't obligated to begin with. It's complicated. I just want to give you a basic analysis of this, but it's essentially asking certain questions. How did this particular law, how does this person have to pay? And the law says he has to pay. So they give several reasons, and each reason is refuted with proofs. In other words, the rabbi said, no, this couldn't be the truth because this doesn't work. Can explain why it doesn't work. And at the end of this long discussion, at the end of the discussion of these great minds, analyzing every detail of this issue, they said, we must accept it, belo ta'am, without understanding. Il cheta belo ta'ama. What? You spent generations, hours of discussion, years of discussion regarding this issue, and you see rabbi after rabbi discussing and bringing it up, and the conclusion is, il cheta belo ta'ama. How could there be such a law without a reason? Hashem gave us this law. It's a question there in the Gemara whether the answer is Hashem or the rabbis decree, but it doesn't really matter. It became that's the law. And we need to accept it even if we don't understand it. So this brings to mind, and I want to conclude with this idea, that even if the rabbis, who are not afraid of confronting every problem intellectually, if at some point, when they reach that boundary, they can say, well, we are going to have to accept it without further explanation, because there is no, we cannot understand it. We cannot understand. There is a reason. We do not know what. That humility is what we have to exercise. And that's why I think that ultimately I want to end with this on this Tisha B'Av. A lot of people who saw the destruction of the Jewish people throughout the centuries, and they abandoned Judaism. It didn't happen only that. It happened at the time of the Romans, at the time of the Spaniards. It happened in Poland. It happened during the Holocaust. Many times throughout our history, people said, it doesn't make any sense. What kind of a God there is here? Forget about it. And yet, there are other people who said, no, we're going to live with it. Whatever it is, we don't understand it. So, on this sad day, we have to say, in one sense, it's very sad to be a Jew. It's sad to be a son, a daughter of a nation that has so suffered so much, that has so many people dead and killed just because we're Jews. It is sad. And we would like to see what is the reason for it. So today I think we all have to say, we don't know. We just don't know. But the fact that we do not know is not a pretext for rejecting our Judaism, for abandoning Hashem, abandoning our tradition. Just as there is no justification for abandoning Torah because there's something we don't understand or something that doesn't fit our mind, so with history. It is a great sadness with which we will recognize that we are Jews. But the majority of us have made a decision that whether it makes sense or it doesn't, whether we will understand it today or ever, whether we will comprehend it or not, we are still proud to be Jews and still instill in our children that pride and that love. It is not intellectual, because the intellect itself is always limited. The intellect is finite. The soul is infinite. Hashem gave us a soul and a mind. The soul sometimes can resolve the issues, but the mind cannot always comprehend. And that's why this pasuk, I want to end with this beautiful pasuk. Listen to this, because it is perhaps the way we should approach our faith. Shimi bat uri vehati oznech. Hear, first of all. Listen to your soul. Listen to the emotions. Listen to your tradition. Listen to your family. Listen to your history. Listen, accept it without the application of the intellect. Then uri. Then go and study. And you will see that it will be right, and it will be justified, and that it will be wise. Rei, you will see. But if in the process of that intellect, you will find a doubt or a question that we do not understand, don't be like that generation of the golden calf and say, I don't understand, I'm giving it up. Have patience and have humility, and let Hashem be trusted in every way, that He is right, His mitzvot are right, that our history, however sad and tragic, is also right. At the end of history, we may actually be able to understand everything. Every mitzvah, everything we did, everything that happened to us, and even the greatest tragedies that happened to us will become clear to us. We will rejoice on that day. Today we are sad, but we hope and long for the day when we will be happy again, both by the reconstruction of the temple and also by the clarification of all the doubts that arose in our minds or in the minds of the Jewish people throughout history.